This show is sponsored in part by Miss Meow Clothing, offering quality custom clothing for the entire family. Coming soon. Brought to you by Miss Cat. Hi, I'm Kathy Brooks, the host of The Kathy Brooks Show. Come discover three pillars: spirit, soul, and body. Kathy Brooks Show starts now.
Hello, welcome. Hi, I'm so glad to be here tonight. Thank you so much for tuning in. This again is our weekly broadcast, and I'm happy for you to join in. So tonight's topic, we are going to talk about. We have a lot to present, so I want to go ahead and dive in as quickly as possible. So our show tonight, we're going to talk about domestic violence, and we're going to talk about what that looks like, not the stereotypes that you used to or the first thing that pops in your head. And I'm happy to present a guest who's going to help us have this discussion. And without wasting too much time, we're going to go ahead and talk about the topic. If I'm looking down, I took some notes because this episode is pretty jam-packed and there's a lot of information here. We are going to talk about surviving domestic violence, what that looks like, and we're going to provide you with information, help, hotlines, and good things for you to be able to signal that. All right, so without further ado, let's take a quick minute and I'll go ahead and introduce my guest to you tonight.
It is my pleasure to welcome Lisa Denae. Lisa is an author, radio host, and entrepreneur. Lisa's voice can be heard as a singer, songwriter, advocate, and public speaker. Lisa is a woman of many talents. Lisa has created a platform for her voice as a radio host of Lisa Denae Live. Lisa is passionate about providing a platform for others. Lisa serves as a producer on Stunner Radio, which serves the Black and Brown communities. Lisa is a survivor of domestic violence and a champion and supporter. Lisa is a fearless woman of God who is a trailblazer, pioneer, and supporter of Black women everywhere. It is my pleasure to introduce Lisa Denae to the Kathy Brooks Show. All right. Welcome, Lisa.
Wow, what an intro. That intro was amazing.
I'm so glad you enjoyed it.
Yes, thank you so much for that. Thank you so much for that intro. That was really amazing. I really appreciate that.
All right. Well, I brought you in because I thought that you would be a good person to help talk about this subject. Not only have you been a victim of domestic violence, you have survived and you are now thriving. So I thought that your input would be monumental to other young women, older women, men, and we know that men are now part of domestic violence as well as women. So I'd like for you to bring your voice to the table as we talk on this.
Okay, well, thank you, first of all. Thank you so much for having me on the show.
Absolutely.
As many people know, the color for domestic violence awareness is purple. However, I chose to wear blue today because the color for child abuse awareness is blue. And so a lot of times survivors of domestic violence are also survivors of child abuse. And I want to really kind of bring that out because that's a big part of what I talk about when I go out and talk about prevention. Okay. Sometimes parents are not aware of abusive behaviors because they were abused as well. They didn't know they was being abused either. So when you grow up in a home that is abusive, whether it be physically, verbally, sexually abusive, that kind of sets you up for an abusive relationship, whether you know it or not, because those things seem normal to you.
Wow.
So I definitely want to highlight child abuse awareness, child abuse prevention, and just speak on behalf of children everywhere who don't have the opportunity to protect themselves and speak up for themselves and say, I believe as a survivor that it's more important for you to err on the side of caution. If you feel like a child is being abused, not doing it in a malicious way because you don't like their parent, but if you feel like a child is in danger, I just want to encourage anybody that may be listening to speak out, think about that child, and try to intervene in any way that you can.
Those are excellent points, and I'm glad you brought it up from a child. Uh, bringing it in from a child perspective, or being a person that was abused as a child, because that could be your normal, and most people that are abusers may have been abused, like you said. So that's a good point to bring home and highlight for the listeners and the viewers to see, because sometimes we don't think about that. We only look at what's now and not what happened and how people got to where they are. So
Right.
that those are excellent points.
Well,
um
I'm a big fan of prevention. I think we can talk about what's happening now. We could talk about it until we blue in the face, but these type of behaviors can be prevented. A lot of women die from domestic violence, and men too. But these things could be prevented. So I'm a big opponent and I'm a big proponent
mhm.
of prevention. And so for me, I had to learn that, a lot of people, when they talk to women about domestic violence, they'll say, didn't you see any red flags? And I always tell people this: if you've been abused as a child, if abusive behavior is normal to you, that flag will not be red.
Hmm.
That flag will be there, but it might be green for you.
Right.
If he's calling you out your name and that's all you ever been called is out your name, that's a green
Mm.
flag to you. It's okay. He with it. He understand the way I get down. He understand how to communicate with me.
Yeah,
So
that's good.
people don't really understand that the things you do to your children can groom them for an abuser. So I think, as you know, Kathy, a lot of Black people been whooped as a child. We call them whoopings.
Right. So
But
true.
I think that is a difference between disciplining your child and whooping your child in anger.
Mm.
Because when you whoop your child in anger and you big old nappy headed and the way they get used to that type of treatment. They
Oh
get
yeah.
used to a person lashing out at them in anger. So when a partner does it, it's just like, oh, okay. And the sad part about it is comforting. When you're used to it, you almost a pick a fight because
Mm.
you want that feeling again because that's familiar to you.
Wow. Those, I haven't really thought of it in that sense. I'm so glad you're bringing out these points. And um, people are so quick to say what they would do, how they would act, how they would have handled a situation. But until you walk in somebody's shoes, um, until you have to deal with certain situations and scenarios, you really, 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 in your heart, don't really know what you would do or how
Yes,
you would act. And
right.
what also tonight, what I wanted to highlight is, the stereotypes we see or have seen, or when you think of domestic abuse, you think, possibly a poor person or a black person or a brown person, but domestic abuse and all of that, it's a wide spectrum. There's people who you may not have ever thought was dealing with something like that.
Yeah,
And
absolutely. Because
and
I think what people don't understand is anyone, good or bad, is capable of being abusive. Anybody, I am,
mm,
you are, we're all capable of being abusive. And the abusive behavior is learned. We don't come here just being abusive. but it's a learned behavior. And with that knowledge, we can understand that it can also be unlearned, you know.
True, so true. And that is so a super excellent point, because just, not to, dismiss it or make it a small thing, but there's a lot of behavior that is learned. And we
Right.
don't even understand that we're learning it. People, they don't grow up to say they're going to be, a thief or a drug dealer or whatever. But when you're in a certain environment, you start picking up small traits. At first, you may be nervous about it. Then you're not so nervous. And then it becomes a lifestyle. It becomes a part of who you are.
Right.
So, and you're right, you have to unlearn that. And there are people and places that can help you unlearn those things. But um, you got to want to, and you got to be aware of the fact that you're doing it. And
Yes. And I think that's the biggest problem and the biggest barrier and roadblock for us in the Black community, because we have people in our community who don't see abuse as abuse. You have people who say, I've never been a victim of domestic violence. Well, have your man ever called you out your name? Yeah, all the time. Well, why you don't think that's abusive? Have he ever cheated on you and lied to you and said he didn't, and then turned around and did it again repeatedly? Yeah, but that's not abuse. What? It is. It's abusive behavior.
it
So I
is.
think that we have to first learn um, what is healthy and what is not healthy, and that's the reason why these type of shows are so important. And it's important to keep talking about this type of thing because, like I said, we all are capable of being abusive. Now, we're not going to get in a relationship. A healthy, mentally stable person is not going to get into a relationship or a friendship and just push their friend down the steps or push their man down the steps. No.
Right.
But a healthy mentally healthy person could come home after being tired, being stressed out at work, and just say, just get out my damn face.
Right.
Okay, that's abusive. You don't need to talk to nobody like that. Now, I'm not saying, okay, they need to go file charges on you. Now, no. But what I'm saying is we need to nip that in the bud right there. We need to change
Exactly.
that right there. We all need
Right.
to learn how to manage our emotions and manage how we speak to each other, because it's just like you said, something simple as I'm gonna give an example of going to church late. If nobody say nothing to you, you start abusing it. You start to say, oh, ain't nobody said nothing, so I'm just going to slide in here again. And before you
Right.
know it, 5 minutes late, 10 minutes late, 15 minutes late, 20 late, especially if you have a position
Habit.
in the church and they
Mm-hmm.
let you slide, and then you start abusing it. Oh, okay, I'm gonna do this. And think about when you had a job. I don't know, some people had a job when they were teenagers that's fast food. You'll give your friend something free, but then they
Mm-hmm.
start abusing it. Now they want free fries, free drink, free sandwich, free. Okay, so my point is we all can abuse things and people. We all have the
True.
potential to be abusive. So I
Correct.
don't want people to feel like, wow, I was an abuser at some point. Okay, we all have the ability to be abusive.
Mm-hmm.
So we don't want to bash people, but we want to teach people how to change abusive behaviors before they get out of hand, before they get to the point where people are killing each other and
Right.
injuring each other.
So true. So true. So true. Well, I want, on that note, I want to I have a few videos. If we have time, I want to present one. And one of them talks about an older person who has an older woman. She's 69, and she was acquitted because she killed her husband out of self-defense.
Oh, wow.
Now, the reason I thought that this was interesting and the reason I wanted to highlight it is because, first of all, her age. Secondly, she has support from her family and she has raised her children in this abuse and she has put up with it for all of these years. And it just came to a point, I don't know what all the circumstances was, what the cocktail mix was that brought her to this point. But you don't have to be a newlywed or you don't have to be 20 years old or 30 years old. And if you are, this is an example to show you don't want to live your whole life dealing with this and just explode in the end. Now she
Right.
was acquitted, but there are women in jail right now that have not been acquitted for uh, defending themselves. And
Right.
there's other people that have gotten away with certain things. But I wanted to highlight that and let the people see that domestic violence does not have necessarily a face. It doesn't have an age, and it doesn't have a criteria around it. It could be anyone, just like you said. We all have the propensity within us to go across the line,
Right.
to be abusers. And let's just watch the video. It's kind of long, but I think it's worth the time to take to listen to it.
Yes, I agree. Looks like it might be buffering.
Okay.
Well, new Atlanta grandmother accused of murdering her husband more than 4 years ago was found not guilty. Janet Alexander was acquitted yesterday of murder. Her arrest in 2019 was a bizarre one. Houston police say when they went to serve the warrant, she set herself and her house on fire. ABC 13 reporter Jessica Willie spoke with her attorney tonight about the twists in the case and her defense that proved effective. Jessica?
Yeah, Eric, Janet Alexander was 69 when she was charged with stabbing her husband to death. Today, she is 72. The 6-day trial ended yesterday here at the Harris County Criminal Justice Center with a not guilty verdict. She has always said she killed her husband in self-defense after decades of abuse, and a jury agreed. Alexander, who now uses a walker, acquitted yesterday at the Harris County Criminal Justice Center, the jury finding her not guilty. It was April of 2018 when she told police that she took a knife away from her husband, Lionel Alexander, and stabbed him in self-defense. There had been a history of domestic violence calls at the home, said HPD. An autopsy, though, revealed her husband was stabbed 89 times.
Good God.
A jury indicted Mrs. Alexander, and when police went to the home on Valley Wind to arrest her a year after her husband's death, she said a fire that burned it down and injured her. Her attorney said that was a suicide attempt from years of suffering. So many twists in this case. He said the jury reached the correct verdict.
She suffered so much abuse from him, both physical and emotional. I mean, it was quite shocking how much abuse that she had put herself through. And like she said, she finally just snapped. She couldn't take it anymore. And when he threatened her, she decided that it was time to finally fight back.
And the attorney, Joe Wells, said that the couple's children have supported her after their father's death and throughout this trial, and that afterward, members of the jury told the defense team that they were surprised she hadn't fought back sooner.
Wow. Wow, that is amazing.
I'm a little speechless.
I'm speechless on that too. Like, it's so sad to even hear of that. That happened right here in Houston, in Harris County. I never heard of this case.
It when I first saw it, I had to sit down because there's, like she said, there's so many layers in this. You have children involved. I mean, they're adult children, and they're dealing with the death of their father, their mother in jail, and dealing with the case. There's so many factors, and I think domestic abuse and any type of abuse, any type of thing, it has a ripple effect in people's lives. It's like throwing a tiny, tiny stone into the water, and the ripples just spread out so wide. We don't know what kind of impact that's going to have, not only on her children, grandchildren, and many generations to come. But
I mean, think about the fact that, well, I had a friend who, it's funny, we met at a battered women's shelter, and she told me that her mother killed her father. Wow. And I was like, wow, she was there when it happened. And I was just like, wow, this is crazy. Her mother was tired of being beat. And so this is why we have to prevent these things, because like you said, it's a ripple effect that will go on for generation to generation to generation. If
Mm-hmm.
it's not stopped, if somebody doesn't break the cycle of abuse. And for me, I want people to understand, see, because these are extreme cases, like the one
Right.
that we just played, the one of my friend. These are extreme cases. But I really need Black people to understand, you know, 9 out of 10 homes are abusive in the Black community. Let's just keep it real. 9 out of 10. I mean, you got people who don't even realize when you call your child stupid, when you call your child nappy headed, and when you call yourself old trifling, you're being abusive.
Right.
I don't think people
Right.
get that, because
And,
this is what causes people to grow up and then be abusive themselves.
and we are witnesses of that spilling over in a public domain.
Yes.
If you've been out and you see a mother or father, but mostly some mothers, if a child is disrupting something, children do things, but they lay into that child. I feel bad. I feel
Yes.
awful just hearing it. That's abuse. She may not have touched the child, but usually, what's the thing? Sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me. That is an out and out false lie.
Yes.
Because the words will damage you much, much longer. Your bones will heal, your abuses will go away, but the pain and the suffering of the words will last a lifetime. It'll take you a lifetime
Yes.
to get over that. So
Right.
that
And the
type of
reason why
abuse,
I think the
mental,
reason why the words are so powerful is because our words do have power, and our words become live alive. Once they leave our mouth, they are out there and they become have a life of their own. So a
it's
lot of
true.
people who hear these abusive words over and over, they start to believe it about themselves. And so for me, I wanted to talk about, I like that we bring out, the extreme cases, because I think people don't hear enough of that. You
Mm-hmm.
got to hear enough of, you got to keep hearing about these extreme cases, because what we have to understand is that a small thing can turn into that right there,
Yeah.
a big extreme case. But I really do want to spend a little bit of time on the subtle forms of abuse.
Okay.
And because I feel like if we talk about this, we can get to the root of how people become abusers. So I learned in some of my training for domestic violence awareness that ignoring someone when you know they are talking to you and they're trying to get your attention, they're trying to pour their hat out, that is a form of abuse,
Hmm.
because you're telling that person, you're sending a message to that person that they don't matter.
Okay.
So if a person is trying to talk to you, they're pouring their heart out to you, and you just sit there ignoring them, give them the silent treatment. These are things that we all do, but
Yeah.
what we don't understand is that these things inflict pain. And when pain is inflicted on people repeatedly, it becomes abusive.
Mm-hmm. That's good. That's real good.
And so this turns people bitter, and then they start becoming abusive. And then it escalates. And
Mm-hmm.
sometimes it escalates very quickly, depending on the person. I have heard stories of women who never got hit, ever. Their man never hit them, but
Mm-hmm.
murdered them after an argument. Murdered
Wow.
them. They never had no physical fights. They had word fights. He was verbally abusive, but never put his hands on them, but murdered them. I've heard more than one case of that. So I need people to understand sometimes it's a quick escalation.
And also with that, I think as women, we're emotional. We'll hold on to things longer than a man can move on from what they say and they're going on to the next thing. And it does have to do somewhat with your personality, but I know that I've had to learn to deal with situations pretty quickly so that they don't escalate. If somebody says something or did something and I don't feel that great about it, I need to have a conversation, because otherwise it's going to fester.
Yeah.
And when things fester uh, and turn over in your mind, and then you start creating scenarios, it just gets really bad. So that's a really good point, to watch out for those subtle things, those small things. Um,
Yes. And there are other ways of abusive behavior that escalates, and that is when a person has a style of communicating that is always belittling. Now, I know you know people like that. No matter what they say, and it's just their communication style, they will always belittle you. If it's nothing like, oh, that little show you got, or that little business,
Yeah.
it's always some form of belittlement in their communication style. And that is abusive because, if you know somebody like that, you'll find yourself avoiding them. You just don't even want to talk to them. You don't want to be around them. But imagine being in a relationship with somebody like that. There ain't too much avoiding you can do. They there, you there. So that repeated style of communication is abusive because they constantly belittling you. No matter what you do, it's like, yeah, it would have been nice, but if you would have just fixed it, nothing is
Never
ever
satisfied. It
yes,
just seems
it's
like they would
always,
never be satisfied.
and you always feel small. And
Wow.
so a lot of people who communicate like that don't even know what they're doing. They don't understand that it's abusive because it's been done to them. But this is important that we break these cycles because the person on the other end of that is being hurt. It's inflicting pain upon them. That's abusive. And so what they do is they either turn around and do it to somebody else. But then every time they do it, it escalates, or they get in victim mode and they can't get out of victim mode. So then everybody in their life starts to belittle them because they start drawing those type of people.
Well, let me ask you this about that particular characteristic of a person. Now, it seems to me they're not very good listeners, for one thing. And the other thing is, sound like they would probably need some outside help to, first of all, understand that they're doing this. They may not be aware, they may not be self-aware, and they may be self-aware. But I don't think that's something, if you're a couple, that you can fix yourself. I think you may need to get some outside help on those.
I think it depends on the person, because if the person truly loves you and they are able to hear you out, if you can say to them and explain to them, especially right when they make the statement, you can't wait and get in an argument. You always belittling me. When do I belittle you? Then you can't give examples. The examples never come to you
with a notebook.
Okay, on January 3rd, you said. So what you have to do is you got to address it right then. So for instance, if they said, well, it would have been nice if you would have did. And that's when you say, hey, I feel like you never have anything positive to say about what I'm doing. It's always belittling and it makes me feel small. If that person loves you, they're going to think about what they said.
That's true.
They're going to say, I don't want to make you feel that way. I have to figure out how not to make you feel that way. But if they don't, or if they love their ego more, well, that's the way you took it. Okay, well, then that's a sign to you that A, you do need outside help, or B, y'all not compatible. And you need to move around, because a lot of times people have gotten into such a habit of communicating abusively, they don't even know it's abusive. When a person, and another thing that I feel like is a subtle way of abuse is when a person is always forcing their definition of who you are on you. Well, you lazy. Well, you don't like doing work. Well, you ain't never. Hey, you don't.
Oh my goodness, that's a good
don't
one.
identify me. Don't continually do that to me, because see what happens is, especially parents who do that to their children. Well, you lazy. I have to check myself on that, because that scars a child, make them feel
start taking on those attributes. Yeah.
Yes, that's abusive. So I start saying to my son, you have a tendency to be lazy or behave like a lazy person. You have a tendency to behave like a lazy person. Or sometimes your behaviors makes me think you lazy. So I'm giving him an out. I'm not saying you lazy, but I'm saying I'm judging your behavior. And to me, it looks like a person that's lazy. So that gives them the opportunity to either change their behavior or figure out, am I lazy? Maybe I am lazy. I might need to change that. But to constantly label someone is abusive.
True. That is so true. These are good things. These are things that we, may not even have considered that it's things that we're doing. This is a good point to pivot. Um, if you are doing it, this is not to condemn anyone, but that's what we're here for, to point out some things. And if you need to change, I've listened to some, you know, sermons or whatever, and it seemed like it was pointing right at me. So, it's a good time to just, take a look in the mirror, and this could be a mirror for you. If we're holding up a mirror to you, then it's a good time for you to take a look and say, okay, what can I do about this? Or go have a conversation with your mate. Go have a conversation and say, do you think I'm like that? Do I talk to you like that? It's a great time to have those conversations.
And I think too that I want to also, mention two things. We have all been, abused by our society. We know that, especially
Mm-hmm.
Black Americans. Black women have been labeled as angry. And so we don't get the respect. Nobody really hears us. It's statistically known that Black women do not get quality health care across the board, whether you're rich or poor, whether you got insurance or not, because
Right.
they see us in a certain light, because they have constantly labeled us. So you have some of us who, because of that abuse that we've suffered, we either become the angry Black woman,
Right.
or we become a doormat because we don't want to look like the angry Black woman.
Yeah, there's no middle ground there.
No middle ground. So we all have been a product of things that have been abusive to us without even knowing it. Without even knowing. But I like to take a page out of the book of Karen. Okay, so Karen don't let nobody abuse her. Karen is overly protective of herself. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
and so I
Okay.
need some of our Black women to be more like a Karenika and go by how things make you feel, because they take it to the extreme. I felt threatened. But see, we need to start somewhere,
Yes,
because a lot of us have been taught that our feelings ain't even valid. Get out
that's
your
so true.
feelings. You and your feelings. Why you always emotional? Your feelings, your feelings, your feelings. But our feelings are valid.
They are valid. True. They are.
If somebody makes you feel small, you have to address that. If somebody makes you feel threatened, you have to address that. And I do want to say one more thing, because I do believe that it's important for Black women. Do not accept any type of, it's going to seem like this is off topic, but I really know that it's another subtlety that exists in the Black community.
Mm-hmm.
Do not accept any type of sexual behavior that makes you feel bad, that makes you feel abused, that makes you feel used. I have talked to a lot of women who that has been the end of their marriage or their relationship, because the man don't understand, when you do certain things, you make me feel a certain way.
Yeah.
We need to have the ability to say that.
Yes.
We need to be able to say, sexual activity is supposed to make you feel loved. And if you
Yeah.
ain't in a love relationship, at least feel desired and wanted and feel aroused. But it's
Yeah,
not
that's
supposed to
true.
make you feel dirty. It's not supposed to make you feel used. It's not supposed to make you feel afraid. No.
So true.
Some of those things and some of those behaviors are abusive. And I just want to encourage women to speak your truth on that. Don't be afraid, because see, your partner will never know. And then you done held it in all these years, and then
And
you
blow
turn
up
it
on them.
away. You blow up on them, or either just don't want to have sex, or don't even want to be intimate at all. Don't even want to be
Right.
affectionate.
Right. And that leads you down a road of some other stuff that you don't even want to deal with. So, these subtle things, we use the word subtle, which it is, but they lead to, they open up door and path to so many places.
Yes.
Just an example you just gave. ladies, let's think about this. Uh, you know, we are talking about domestic abuse, but I mean, just from Lisa's talk, we need to understand there's so many levels of abuse that's happening in our society. Uh, you ain't got to come out with no black eye to say that you've been abused. There's so much. There's so much. And I really just appreciate you just breaking it down to that level. I mean, I never thought of some of these things, but it's so, so important. And it's so important to our community and our people. Um, so, with that note, I don't even know if I want to play the other video because let me tell you what it's about. Um, and the reason I chose it, it is a dramatic, uh, one of the extreme cases. But the reason I chose it was to show that you never know who's getting abused. You can't look at where someone's statue is in life. What kind of money, what kind of job, where they live. Their circle of friends. You can never ever tell by that. And this one again, it has a sad ending. However, uh, let's take a look at it. Let's dive into it. And this is another one that happened here in our Houston, Harris County area. Um, while we're loading that up, I just want to talk about.
Well, we're learning more today in the case of a military recruiter who killed his wife as she was holding their baby. It was the focus of a Navy criminal investigation. All of this unfolding in the Humble area, and that's where we find ABC 13 reporter Courtney Fisher. Courtney?
Yeah, good morning, Mel. In the last 15 minutes or so, we just confirmed a lot of new information. The U.S. Navy recruiter who allegedly killed his wife, then was shot and killed himself during a shootout with deputies. His name has now been confirmed to us by law enforcement forces. We're told he is Greg Hightower. Authorities have not released the name of his wife, the woman he allegedly killed, but we know she was 34 years old. We also now know there was a history of domestic violence incidents here at the home. The first one happened back in July when we're told that both the husband and the wife claimed one another were being violent. So prosecutors ended up not pressing any charges. But we know the second incident happened within the last 48 hours. Investigators tell me that she called asking how to file a restraining order. And now we've ended up here. I want to show you video from Sky Eye over the Balmoral neighborhood yesterday at around 4 o'clock. The whole area turned into a crime scene. The sheriff says that Hightower shot and killed his wife as she was holding the couple's baby. It happened as a special agent with the U.S. Navy was actually interviewing the 34-year-old woman because she claimed her husband was abusive. The sheriff says Hightower walked into the house with a gun, shot his wife, and then there was a shootout with that special agent. The agent was hit. We just got the update that he is still in the hospital, but he is stable. He should recover. We're told that Hightower then left and drove to northwest Harris County, where Precinct 4 deputies found him parked outside his mother's house after she had called 911. Precinct 4 says that he had a gun. There was a second shootout there with deputies, and that's when Hightower was killed. We've reached out to the Navy for comment. We've also reached out to the Hightower family. Understandably, a very difficult time for them right now. Something to mention to put this all in context, the Harris County Sheriff notes that at this point in Harris County, 35% of homicides have some kind of domestic violence element to them. He says, of course, that number just way too high. For now, reporting live in Humble, Courtney Fisher, ABC 13 Eyewitness News.
Wow, those none.
That is crazy.
That's another one. I mean, that one is it makes me speechless as well. But in this particular report, they didn't show, but they did speak to the neighbors, and they were like, "I couldn't believe it. He was my mentor. He did this for me, or he did that for me." And if you noticed in the video, it talks about both were complaining of abuse. she may have been mouthing off or possibly hitting him, and she was, I don't know, but it's just a horrible, horrible situation. And also, she had complained, and they were there to investigate. And he shows up, and all of this goes down.
And I feel, you know, the reason why this video just really so sad, just really just I don't know, it just really impacted me is because we all know people who
Yes.
have these type of relationships, and you know, oh, they have problems, they always fight. You never think it's going to end like this.
Mm-mm.
But that's the reason why people have to take this seriously. And I have always felt like law enforcement needs more and more training, and then more training, and then more training after that.
Right.
Because the proper thing to do would have been to taken her away from the home. If she is complaining about abuse that's taking place in the home, they should have taken her away from the home to take the interview.
Oh,
You
that's a
know,
good
and
one.
then it's crazy because sometimes they really just don't believe you. They
That is
really
true. They
don't.
don't.
They'll
They
take a
don't.
look at your home and they'll think to themselves, "Oh, and she just wants."
Right.
And I'm gonna tell you, I had it happen to me when I lived in Columbus, Ohio. I went to the district attorney, the DA's office, to try to get a restraining order against my husband, and the assistant DA said, "Well, I mean, you don't have no marks." So, I mean, I don't see any evidence of abuse, and I'm not going to be part of a forced eviction. I
Oh
think you
my
just want
goodness.
us to put him out. I said, what? I couldn't believe
I
that
can
this
believe
man
it.
talked to me like that.
Oh my goodness.
And I said, you know what? Don't worry about it. I got my purse. I said, but you put on record that I was here, because the next time
Mhm.
he puts hands on me, he coming out in a body bag. And before I even got to the elevator, the assistant was like, ma'am, come back, come back. I was serious. I was not
Wow.
playing. I wasn't trying to play no games. I was dead serious. Because for him to say in my face, I just don't believe you, and I'm not
Wow.
going to be a part of a forced eviction, I said, okay, don't even much worry about it. Because see, what I'm not going to do is get hands put on me no more. So I'll handle it myself. So I
Wow.
ended up getting the restraining order. But a lot of times, what people don't understand, that makes it worse, because now they pissed that you got a restraining
Hmm.
order.
Yeah.
Some of them don't even care. They'll violate it. They don't care. So in cases like this, people have to really swallow their pride, get out their, issues of people knowing their business, and think about their life and think about their children.
Yes.
This
Yes.
situation that we just watched, this man went to his mother's house. Now his mother got can you imagine
Putting
your
so many
son?
people in jeopardy. Oh my
So
goodness.
many people has been affected because these two people could not handle their relationship. They could not be healthy together. And I
Mm-mm.
know people saw it. I know they did, because I know I saw it. And so for me, I have two examples that of friends in my life that I didn't say nothing. Well, one friend I did say something.
Mm-hmm.
One friend I didn't, and it haunted me. It haunted me because she told me that she was going back with this guy. And in me, I was like, oh, I should say something, because I don't think that dude is it. She told me he put his hands on her before.
Yeah.
But she's talking about how he changed, and he getting his life together, blah, blah, blah. And I was just like, oh my God, I don't know what to say. But I felt like I should have said something.
Mm-hmm.
But she was so happy. I didn't want to, I just didn't want to rain on her parade. I didn't want to steal her joy. She just seemed so happy. And I was like, oh, dang, I ain't gonna say nothing. It wasn't even 9 months later and she was dead.
Oh my goodness.
He murdered her. He
Oh
killed
my
her and killed himself. And I was just distraught, because I'm not saying that if I said something, she wouldn't have went, because she probably would have
Yeah.
went. But what I'm
Well,
saying is I
oh
will
my
never do
goodness.
that, because I didn't say nothing.
Well, that's a lesson right there, and I'm getting chills just thinking about it. That's a lesson right there when you're talking about um when you were talking about us and our feelings. It's difficult to have a conversation with somebody when you see and there's an issue with them, because why you in my business? Why you all up in my stuff? But sometimes you just have to say it. You just have to say it because it releases you, because you said what you needed to say.
Yes.
Whether they act on it or not, you are not in control of what other people do. However, if you see something and you feel some kind of way, you got to say something.
Absolutely.
At least
Gotta
give
say
that
something.
person a chance. Don't go outside and talk about it to other people. At least give that person a chance to hear you. That's a
And that
different.
was that was a wonderful, beautiful friend of mine who lived in Houston, Texas, by the name of Carmen Hendricks. A lot of people knew her because she was an author. She spoke a lot about overcoming domestic violence because she witnessed this as a child. She witnessed domestic violence between her parents. And so she wanted to break the cycle. She was featured in one of my calendars that I had domestic violence survivors in. She was featured in the calendar.
Wow.
So I think it was 2 years later, she was killed by her abuser. So I mean, so
That's
understand that we as a community of people and as a village, as we like to say, we have to understand that a lot of times it is a matter of life and death. Whether you believe it or not, it is.
Yeah.
It is a matter of life and death. It's not that she didn't know about domestic violence. Clearly she did, because she was an advocate. She spoke about it. She was in my calendar. So she knew about it. But sometimes these cycles of abuse are very, very hard to break.
True.
And we have to be strong enough and courageous enough to stand up and break these cycles. And that's the reason why I wanted to talk about subtleties, because that's where the cycle exists. It exists right there in all those subtleties. And so the other friend that I lost due to domestic violence, it wasn't an intimate partner, but it was a family member. And I talk about him all the time. My friend, Pastor Ken Toussaint. And he was killed by a family member. Now, I did speak out on that. I told him that. I told him, your family going to be the death of you. I told him about a particular family member. And that person killed him in his own home.
Wow.
So at least I spoke my truth on that. But again, it's hard for people.
It's still painful. Yeah. Wow.
It's hard for people to accept the truth about the people they love. So I feel like in my heart of hearts, if we stop abusive behavior when it's in that subtlety phase, we won't even have to have these hard decisions of cutting people off and getting restraining orders. If we stop it at the root before it becomes a mighty oak tree,
yes,
we do not have to deal with such extreme cases of people being stabbed to death in their kitchen. Like my friend being her man held her hostage and killed her and then killed himself. I mean, these type of things is just so hard on the families, the people left behind, the
yes,
children.
yes, yes. It's I'm it's a lot. 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 I'm so sorry that those things and those friends you have lost, but I'm happy that you came to tell us about it, so that we can learn what these small things can do and how they can grow and escalate. It's like uh, a seed. If you dig it up, it's not going to continue to grow.
Right.
But if you continue to water that behavior, allow that behavior, like you said, next thing you know, it's sprouting, and then you're like, oh, okay, it'll be all right. It changed direction, but it's still growing. So
Right.
it's so important, so important. And I just want to say this, we're talking about domestic violence, we're talking about, but I just would challenge those that are listening, those that are watching. It's behaviors that aren't uh, healthy in every area of your life. It's a good time to take a look at that, because one unhealthy behavior can manifest in another way, and then you got something else on your hands. So I think this discussion is, important, is pivotal. Lisa has brought out so many good points, And I'm so happy that, she joined us and given us these seeds and nuggets of wisdom that we could take with us. So, before we wrap up and close out for the day, um, I did do a little bit of research about statistics, and I just wanted to know, you know, uh, this is not a, it's a universal problem.
Right.
It's not just Houston, it's not Texas, it's not Arizona. It is a global problem.
Right.
I was doing some research and I found that in India they were protesting some Bollywood movie that was advocating and displaying domestic violence, and the women was out there advocating and pushing to get this out. And then in Iran there was another situation. This is not just here, it's everywhere, because we're all human, we all have different behaviors, and these subtle things don't just exist here, it exists everywhere.
Right.
So if we can have a movement to people just recognizing these small things, like you said, we'd be cutting down many oak trees and not having all these bad situations happening. And I mean, the ripple effect can be reversed. We don't have to talk about removing guns and removing knives or removing this or removing that. We need to remove the behavior. If you don't have the behavior, you won't have the situation.
Right.
So I think that is so, I'm just so touched and so moved by the information that you presented today. So, as I said in the opening, in the introduction, Lisa is a woman of many talents, and she is an artist. And because she has dealt with domestic violence, she wrote a song, and she has a video that that displays, her. I don't know if it was your personal incident, but it's a very good video, and I think it'll behoove the people to take a look at it. If we have time to look at it now, we can do so. But if not, we'll just put the information out there so people can go out and watch it later, and get that music and listen to it. I think it'll motivate you.
I think we have time. I do want to say that the video, the purpose of the video was to show different types of abusive relationships. So we
Okay.
showed a woman on woman, like, because domestic violence does exist in an LGBTQIA plus community. It does.
Right. It does.
So we showed a woman being abusive to a man, because a lot of times people think men are the only abusers. No, men are abused all the time.
Yes.
So we wanted to make sure that we showed more than one scenario. So that is the thing about the video. And I want to also point out before we share the video that my beloved friend that I talk about all the time is starring in the video with me.
Oh, okay.
He's starring as my abuser, but he was not an abuser, but he was always there for me in whatever capacity I wanted him to be in. So I asked him to be in the video and he obliged me. So
Okay.
yeah, so I hope you enjoy the video. The song is called Love Myself More.
All right, ladies. Love yourself more. Let's get into this right now.
Okay, it's on again. You singing that same old song again. If you love me, baby, what you want again. My skin got used to bruising. I just got used to choosing what you want over what I want. But now I'm sick and tired of losing. So you can take away the house and cars. 'Cause every day I got to live with the pain and scars from you. And all these years you had me thinking I was crazy. But you gon' learn today. 'Cause guess what? It's your turn today. Boy, bye. I gotta go. Boy, you know I love you, but I love myself more.
I was enjoying it.
I'm not sure what happened because it just stopped playing.
Well,
Could you hear it?
I seem like I could still hear it in the background, but Um, I could hear it, but I couldn't see it too good.
Yeah, I'm not sure what happened, but hopefully you guys will go and check it out.
I'm gonna add it on my Instagram under the replay information, so the ladies, the gentlemen, everybody can go and check it out. I think it'd be worth your time to take a minute and listen and watch. The cinematic quality is great. The sound is good. The music is good. It's got a good beat, but the message is the most important part of it. So I wanted to share that with everybody. And before we leave, I want to thank you again, Lisa. You have brought so much to the show tonight. All your nuggets, all your wisdom. We appreciate it. And thank you for stopping by.
Thank you
And
for having me.
and all your stuff is going to be out there as far as like where you can find Lisa, how you can reach out to her. And remember, she is also a radio host. She has a show on Starter Radio, Lisa Denae Live. Lisa is a busy lady. She's also a secondary host, a producer, and she does a lot. So um, she keeps the radio popping. So we're going to go ahead and go out. I appreciate everyone for watching tonight, and I'll see you in the next video. We're going to go ahead and roll some statistics about domestic violence. We're going to put information on if you need help, you need to speak to someone. Um, you'll see that information come across the screen, and I will see you all the next video. All right? Good night. Good night, good day, whenever you're watching. I appreciate you all so much.